Hello, good afternoon, and thank you, GIP office. Thank you, Fabian, for this amazing opportunity to be here today with you. Um, I will be sharing today a project that started 2 years ago after a challenging moment I was facing with my small company in Mexico. And I say we because it's me and my business partner and the whole team that we started seeing a very big challenge on the need to evolve, innovate, and to find more options on how to transcend our little company. So this project is in collaboration with the academia in Mexico, with the National Polytechnic Institute, and thanks to them, this project has been able to go because science is quite a costly playground. And as a small company, sometimes financing all this innovation, it becomes really challenging. So I decided to ally with them to start this exploration of the biocultural resources we have in central Mexico to create a product innovation for the plant-based protein demand. Okay, just quickly, briefly, I want to share with you what has been my way. My bachelor's degree was in clinical biochemistry. Thanks to the studies, I was able to open the world to biology and chemistry, and it was life-changing for me. Later on, I had the opportunity to do a year internship at FAO, and that was also a breaking moment for me to understand the challenges that you're probably now being aware in this program of how all around the world we're facing every type of challenges, environmental, health, climate change, forestry loss, biodiversity loss. So it's quite overwhelming to know all these challenges we have. And from this internship, I gather a lot of information. Later on, I decided to do a master degree program in London at Kew Botanical Gardens. And there, the research project I worked in was in the Millennium Seed Bank. And it was mainly focused on the on the uses and propagation of underutilized trees. And that was also quite important because this kind of set me for my next step into understanding how biocultural resources are important for the livelihoods of many people, especially from those groups that are mostly in the need of progressing and development. Also, parallel to my small business, I work in a climate change consulting group. This is just a part-time job, but it's also really useful because I keep up to date to what is going on with the most policy trends, climate change. When companies try to reduce their emissions, they're trying right now to change their whole programs into zero emissions strategies. And well, Mico Corazon is this small company I founded with a business partner. She's my friend from college. She is designer, but we came up to decide this small company based on functional foods. And the main topic here as well was to complement functional foods. I mean, functional foods as foods that have beneficial health benefits besides just nutrimental, but also incorporating ingredients with the local resources we have in Mexico, such as amaranth, cacao, coffee, and most of all these sources come from small business or small scale farmers that are compromised with agroecological and conservation projects. And as I was telling in the beginning, this project that I will be now talking about, came up because in Mico Corazon, after a couple of years of working, we started facing a lot of challenges. Suddenly we had a lot of competition and we had to innovate and we had to make a new way through it. So with that, I decided to kind of be a student again, make this allied with the National Polytechnic Institute and develop this project that I will be sharing with you now. So just to let you know, we're going to be talking a little bit from the general to particular. And just, I don't know if you guys are familiar to plant-based proteins. Any of you has decided to change their dietary habits towards the vegetarian or plant-based diet? Is anyone in that side?
I'm not vegetarian, but I tried plant-based.
Okay. And where are you from?
Taiwan.
And have you noticed in Taiwan like a crescent demand, rise demand of plant-based proteins, or it's not so?
Pretty common because like the people who go to the gym, they take they'll have like acne problem if they take dairy protein.
Yes.
So actually a lot of people decide to switch to
plant-based protein. Exactly. So that demand is also in Mexico. It's very well established in the US, but Mexico is very as well connected to the US market in a way like if whatever is going on in the US, in Mexico, in 5 years, 3 years, we will have that same trend. So it's kind of like useful to know what's going on in the state in the US to know what will be coming to Mexico. So that's basically what we were facing in our same niche in this small company. Our clients were asking us for plant-based products, plant-based, clean, just like sole ingredients, not like a big compound formulas. So that's how I saw the need to find a supply of plant-based proteins within the country, but I found out that there was no supply on it. Well, all of these products were mainly imported from Canada, the US, China. And in Mexico, we have beans, Phaseolus vulgaris, are like the main staple food with corn. So beans, however, have not such a high protein content. So that's how fava beans came into the next line. So just briefly, I would like to share with you what's the current state of plant protein so you can have a general idea of what's going on. Then we will focus particularly in Vicia fava because that's the resource of interest that I came up to decide focus on. And and also the biocultural value this resource has in central Mexico. Each plant protein resource will require certain food processing requirements. So we will also like explore a little bit the general overview of these food processing techniques. Again, the potential market trends that this product could be applied, but in Mexico. And finally, just an overview of what has been the project development with the National Polytechnic Institute. So just briefly, I mean, now that I hear that many of you are very into public health and food science, well, you'll know that proteins are essential for a diet. They're mainly composed by 20 amino acids, and they play various roles in the functions of our body. They're part of our muscle gain, hormones, connective tissue, and the daily requirements in reference from the U.S. Medical Center. It's an ingestion of 0.8 to 1 grams per protein of protein by body weight per day. So it's around 70 grams, 80 grams in average weight we have. But still, we know that the protein we consume nowadays, it's much more than that. We have a great challenge from here to 2050 to feed around 100 billion people. And for this, we will need almost 50% more food. We will be probably 1/3 more people that we are now. And we will require a lot more land, which is forecasted to be almost twice the size of India for producing the food we will require for 2050. So this is pretty a big challenge. And with the trends, the dietary trends we have now, well, being livestock and dairy are main sources of protein intake, this intensive production of protein requires a lot of resources such as land use and water use. In comparison, if we move towards the legume section, after pork, there are pulses, fruits, wheat, soybean, maize, roots, tubers, rice, palm oil, and sugar. The requirements of land and water reduces considerably. So it's a very valuable and interesting way to reduce pressure in our ecosystems and in the whole Earth dynamic. So the current state of plant proteins has to do as well with the consumer trends. As just our colleague was sharing, even in Taiwan, there is a great demand and popularity for protein plant-based products. And just in the US, these trends have to do a lot with that consumer focus on health and wellness, increasing food safety concerns. Many of this group of people that go towards plant-based protein are looking as well for an alternative because of the growing concern for animal welfare. And on the other side as well, we have an increased awareness of environmental sustainability. So just to hear what's going on here on the plant-based protein market, this is expected to keep rising. I mean, just now from 2024 until 2030, the market will increase probably 3 times more. So it's quite a niche to attend and to see what's going on. What can we do from the food processing or innovation side? So this also is a very interesting graph of how product adoption of plant-based products and ingredients have been increasing through time. So gradually, it's been more the acceptance of plant-based foods, especially like, obviously here in Japan, Asia, tofu has always been part of the diet. But in America and Mexico and in the West side, it's gradually been more and more consumed. And also other type of foods, especially like plant-based milks, yogurts, and alternative substitutes of meat. Besides just like the whole product, we also need the ingredients that are part of this whole formula. So for all those ingredients, we also need to produce protein additives that are plant-based so they can be accepted within this whole market. So, okay, so these are the main, just like a section of the plant-based protein resources. We see here that they involve cereals, legumes, oil seeds, nuts, edible seeds, tubers, and also, it was not included in the graph, but we also have lots of options from mushrooms, algae, even yeast that can provide a protein source. Even now with recent innovation, there's this, I don't know if you're familiarized, probably our colleague with fermentation, but the whole trend that there is and technology there is to produce proteins from bacterial fermentation and precision fermentation, which is very interesting topic. Well, so from all these plant sources, I've decided to select Vicia faba. Why? Well, Vicia faba is part of the Fabaceae leguminose family. It is globally, it has been adapted to grow under low temperatures. It's quite often cultivated in Canada and Northern Europe. As a leguminosae, it's a nitrogen-fixing plant, which is also very suitable for conservation practices such as agroecological and organic practices. And it's the 4th most widely grown pulse for cool season areas after just pea, chickpea, and lentil. Okay. After soy, which soy has a very high average of protein, which is around 40, Vicia faba or faba bean has around an average of 27% of protein content, which is quite high in comparison to pea. And I mean, it's also very low in fats. Just in Mexico, the main pulse we have as staple food is Phaseolus vulgaris. And you would probably ask, well, why don't you use then beans if it's like your main pulse source? But just in comparison to beans, Vicia fava has a higher percentage of protein content, which that is like the key data that I'm looking for. And despite having a less total essential amino acid component, this can be resolved if this this protein extraction is formulated with another ingredient such as cereals that can complement that that decrease of certain essential amino acids. Also, Vicia fava have a high protein digestibility in comparison to the to beans, regular beans. So for this component, what do you understand as a biocultural value? Do you have any idea of what does it sound to you? Any, is it a new topic? Is it a new subject? Okay. Yeah, well, so biocultural value is not precisely a trend, but it's a very used topic term within the Mexican academia of scholars focused on conservation, agriculture, ecology, and cultural development. So it's basically the component where where plant resources or natural resources have a profound connectiveness with culture. So just before jumping into more about biocultural value, Vicia fava has been, it's cultivated around the world. Its center of origin is basically in Afghanistan, from Iran to Afghanistan, basically Middle East. But it has been well adopted in many places around the world, and in Mexico it's no exception, especially in the central area of Mexico. Why in this area? Well, the central area of Mexico is quite high. We have a neovolcanic range of mountain crosses the center of Mexico. So just in that circle there, which is the evidence of the center there, the altitude that most of the territory is more than 2,000 meters above sea level. So Vicia fava has been quite a valuable resource for small-scale farmers to introduce into their local production practices. So this picture is quite a very traditional or common landscape. This is just next to the institute I go there for doing my lab work. And what you see there, it's a corn maize field. But Vicia fava is usually cultivated in rotation with corn, or in some cases, it's also part of the polyculture type of agriculture scheme that small-scale farmers use. So due to this type of agricultural practices, the local varieties of Vicia fava have adapted. So, even though we don't have a proper knowledge of the genetic pool and diversity of Vicia fava, there's probably only one study that has been done very recently to characterize the profile of this resource. The seeds that are and the cultivars that are used there are named as Creole Vicia fava beans. Recently, farmers have adopted Vicia fava instead of corn due to the high protein content and also that it's better paid. However, it's still challenging to produce it because it's very susceptible to diseases, and that type of challenges are the ones that are pushing for trying to understand better what's going on with this cultivar in the central area. Yeah. Okay, so just here it's an overview of what is biocultural for this component, and biocultural means the profound connections between nature and human activities. It's mainly observed in different systems of natural resource production, such as agriculture, fishing, and hunting. And in the case of Mexico, there is a very strong heritage of the traditional practices, agricultural practices, because the polyculture type of agricultural practice local from Mexico, it's called milpa. And the milpa is the activity, the way of subsistence farming. This means that Vicia faba is generally cultivated in association with maize, squash, chili. It's a very dynamic way of growing that most of the small scale farmers apply. So just here in this picture, it might be very difficult to identify Vicia faba between those corn plants, but well, it's just an evidence of how it can be also intercropped with corn. Yeah. In the central landscape of Mexico, Vicia faba is found quite a lot. And it is used besides like normal dishes, maybe soups or things. It can also be found as a snack. It's usually toasted, and it's and roasted. Well, toasted and roasted, and it's also powdered with chili and salt. And normally, like in the local bars and beers, wherever you go, especially in the center of Mexico, not out of there, you find always this as a snack. And there is another very interesting use of it that I didn't know until very recently, because it's kind of like not secrecy, but it's not so easy to know that it is used for this. It's a beverage. In Mexico, in every like area of the country, there is a different formulation or presentation of a cacao beverage. But in the central area, we have a beverage known as agua de barranca, and it's this beverage is made with when corn, cacao, and Vicia faba are toasted. They are grounded until a paste is made, and this paste then later with water is whisked until a very big foam and stable foam is there in the bowl. So this is I think I came up to understand what was going on with that foam thanks to this project, because the proteins of Vicia faba basically collaborate on this foam stability. Because I mean, and it's not something that you know, or that the people will tell you that this is the key ingredient for making this foam so stable, because normally they will just say like, oh yeah, you will use corn and cacao and water and whisk until this great foam comes up. But in reality, it's a functional property of the proteins of Vicia faba that allows this great stable foam in this beverage. So, okay, for food processing and for the improvement of the extraction of plant-based proteins, there are different challenges, and there are different methods to extract these proteins. So first of all, especially in pulses and legumes, the challenges are between the undesirable taste and flavors pulses might have. Also, there's a challenge of nutrition, where plant-based proteins have an unbalanced amino acid composition. They usually lack essential amino acids from sulfur type of amino acids, such as cysteine, tryptophan, and methionine. And they also possess a lot of non-desirable compounds that affect the digestibility of the protein. On the other hand, as well, once maybe these resources are processed, maybe the functional properties can change. They can even be improved or not, but it's normally it must be evaluated to understand what happened through the process. This feature just to have an overview of the different type of processing techniques, which can englobe like physical type of techniques to extract protein, plant-based proteins. There can be chemical types of processing techniques. There can be biological types such as fermentation or enzymatic processes to allow the extraction of the plant-based proteins. And there can also be, well, there are many others, but in this case, in my case, we were working especially with a type of chemical extraction. However, how to accurately determine and how to improve the protein quality of a plant source, it's still a challenge, and it's something that it's regularly found in the literature for plant-based protein extraction. Specifically in Vicia flava, the challenges are to improve the undesired flavors, such as the beany taste or smell. The nutritional quality has to do as well in improving the form. If we're using this as an ingredient, it will lack essential amino acids. That's the one that I was saying, the sulfur type amino acids. So it's ideal to complement this product with another ingredient, mainly a cereal, that can provide the whole spectrum of amino acids in the formula. And also the protein digestibility, which is affected due to several compounds that can be present in the plant-based proteins. And thanks to this processing, these compounds can be removed. And ideally, you will have a product with a much higher digestibility and bioabsorption. Also, non-desirable compounds, specifically in Vicia flava, are compounds such as visin and colchicine and the oligosaccharides. These two range or category of compounds were the ones focused especially in this project to validate that they are not present in my final product. Why? Well, oligosaccharides are compounds, carbohydrates that come from sucrose, and they're thought to cause like flatulence and limit the digestive problems. And this generally causes like rejection to eat this type of pulse. On the other hand, we have visin and covicin. These are pyrimidine glycosides, and when they are hydrolyzed, they create two compounds that are that they may cause favism in susceptible populations. So favism is mainly present in people in the Mediterranean area. This is due to the lack of the glucose 6 phosphate dehydrogenase, and this enzyme allows us to remove oxidative agents. So if this group of people don't have this enzyme, these two compounds are highly oxidative and they cause hemolytic anemia. At least in Mexico, there is a very low average or percentage of people with favism, yet it's not a matter to not evaluate and consider that these compounds are eliminated from a food product. And luckily, through these, well, not luckily, but it is why it's so important to also process these pulses. These type of compounds can be removed or eliminated. So these are very common type of processes that are, I mean, even if you usually cook pulses, you might remember that sometimes it is recommended to soak the beans or the pulses through the night. That's basically the process that helps remove all of these undesirable compounds. Also, just by dehuling the seed, you can remove as well many of these compounds that are present in the seed coat. And as well, it can help us gather much more protein per total um, uh, grams. Also, germination might as well help increase a bit the protein content. However, it's more about removing the seed coat, so you can gather much more um, cotyledons that are the main parts where proteins are gathered there. And well, these are two definitions within the food processing of proteins. A concentrate is a food product that has more than 60% of protein on a dry weight basis. It's generally without, it removes such, carbohydrates and fibers. And generally, it can be used with air classification. The particles are very finely milled. And with air, it's separated. So you can gather the particles that are the protein side, and just the carbohydrates and the fibers will separate. And an isolate is a product that is up 90% of protein on the weight basis. And this is generally achieved by solubilizing the protein in a saline solution or alkaline solution. And thanks to the isolate, well, we also add a bit of an acid solution so we can separate the proteins. By any chance, are you familiarized with tofu production? Like, do you know how tofu is made? So basically, tofu is an isolate from soy milk, and it's separated from the whole matrix, the protein from the whole milk of soybean. By processing and gathering isolates, we have as well the chance to almost eliminate these undesirable compounds. So it's a very reliable way of providing a food product, protein product with a high quality and digestibility. So specifically in Mexico, with the intention of having this protein product, we can evaluate on incorporating it in some type of food matrix. So this is just like a comparison of tortilla chips that are commonly found in the markets in a convenience store. And for example, the first one, it's a very common type of tortilla chips. The price it's generally low, and the protein content is one gram. However, products that are fortified or that are addressed to a certain niche that are looking for a higher protein value, the price will rise considerably, and as well as the protein content. And this last product, it's just a reference of like this also like wellness trend that it's going on, and where people are looking for products that have not so many ingredients, and they're just healthy with a nice protein or dietary nutritional value. Okay, so now just to share with you what I've been doing the past 2 years. In alliance with the National Polytechnic Institute, we defined this project for developing this ingredient, this food protein ingredient, in order to fortify like the essence of the company, and to have a product that can be sold or that can supply the demand that it's going on right now in Mexico. So the main goal is to obtain a nutritious product with a protein content exceeding 75%, with easy digestibility and suitable for incorporation into various sectors of the food industry. These are the project goals, and along the next slides, I will be presenting more or less the work that has been done and the results that we have gathered. So it has, the first one has involves the proximate analysis or characterization of our sources from fava beans in the local, from the local central area of Mexico. Then we also analyze with HPLC, the protein quality, the amino acids present in the fava beans. We also had the yield of the protein extraction with the methods used. We determined the presence of non-desired compounds. This is important because if we want to provide a product for the market, well, we want to be sure that the product has eliminated these compounds that are undesirable. Then we had a functional evaluation for having the data on what are the characteristics of this protein extraction product. And as well, with a group of trained panelists, we did a sensory evaluation of the product obtained, as well as the application into a food matrix. So the materials were samples from the center region. They were Creole fava beans. However, I mean, both farmers described it as a Creole fava bean, but the size was quite different. I mean, this one was probably 2 to 3 times bigger than the other one, but yet this kind of evidences that the knowledge of the fava beans it's just like standardized. It's not so precise in the area. For extracting the protein, these fava beans were first whole. They were mild. We created a flour, and this flour was, we evaluated both processes, a defatted flour and a non-defatted flour. And then we tried 2 methods with alkaline solutions. But these alkaline solutions, the compounds that we use had to do first with the availability of the compound, because one of them, even though it had very good yields of protein extraction, it was not easy to access in Mexico. It was kind of like full of regulatory frameworks to buy it. So in the end, I mean, even though we had a nice protein yield, it was not, I mean, in the sense of a business, it was not really useful to rely on that source. Then after we have the protein extraction, it is hot air oven dried. So we can have this white powder protein concentrate that ended up being more than 75% of protein. Okay, so initially we did the characterization of the amino acid content in Vicia fava, and we validated that it is low in the sulfur-containing essential amino acids, such as cysteine, methionine, and tryptophan. However, lysine, that it's also a common amino acid that sometimes lacks in cereals. Well, in Vicia fava was all right. It was there present. Then with the proximate composition, we evaluated the fiber, ashes, fats, total carbohydrates, and the protein from the source was also within the reference value. It is within 24% of protein content. But after processing, we had a protein content of 77%, which is quite reasonable. And we consider this is very useful because the alkaline solution we proved hadn't been used before in the Mexican reference. And this alkaline solution was it was kind of an experimental trial, because it's the alkaline solution that it's typically used for processing corn. Corn in Mexico, it's one of our staple cereals, and it is processed to make tortillas. But to make those tortillas, that corn, it's not just grounded and milled. It has to be processed in a very alkaline solution that it's used with calcium hydroxide. And it resulted that this solution came to be a nice option for plant protein extraction. Also, the functional properties revealed that the protein extraction concentrate had a good lipid absorption index compared to other reference. I mean, it was quite comparable to other references. Also, the water absorption capacity was later also evaluated, but experimentally with, I will show you later, with some ladies that prepare locally tortillas. The foaming capacity it was also good, and the foam stability was quite also high. And this, after doing this test, that's when I came to understand why it is used in this beverage that is locally produced in the central, this cacao beverage. Also, to validate the elimination of the oligosaccharides, it was just last week before coming to Japan that I did this analysis, and we proved that the concentrate or isolation of the protein plant base was free of this oligosaccharide. So we can now say that this product is free of this. However, I'm still missing, and I don't have the results here for the validation of the elimination of visin and covisin, but this is something that I will be doing probably in the next few weeks. Once we had this protein extract, it was very important to evaluate the taste. And in the lab with my colleagues, we did a sensory evaluation, a QDA, and with our group of panelists were calibrated. They were trained for almost a week. This was done with this 15 scale type of we had first a set of sweet solutions, so they could train what was a high taste of sweetness, a medium taste of sweetness, and a low taste of sweetness. We also evaluate the sourness, the bitterness, and the beany flavor. And the group came up with these results. So mainly this protein extract had mainly a bitter taste, and the beany flavor was quite not too evident, but some of them, once they were trained, they could perceive it, but they mentioned that it was not as strong as how they usually perceive the aroma of fava beans. And the sour is not supposed to be there present. This is an indicator that the processing technique still needs to be probably improved, so we can lower that sour perception of the product. So then the next test was to take the product with the local tortilla producers, because this was just it's not within the agenda of the project, but it was just a way to perceive how they would receive the product, and as well how they feel when it was incorporated in their typical tortilla production. And at the beginning, they were quite doubtful on the process, and later on they were quite curious of how the protein extract was incorporating into the dough. They realized, and they mentioned that it required, once they were trying to prepare the same amount of dough, but when it was added more protein content, they mentioned that they would need more water for it to feel the same way as their normal and usual dough of tortillas. And later, also with the group of trained panelists, we evaluated the sensory perception of chips. This is a small type of chip totopo. It was applied to it in different quantities, and we wanted to know how much they could identify the incorporation of the protein extract. And it was up to 30% of it was accepted. The favorite was between 20 and 10. However, after 30, it was just like impossible to eat it. They could perceive a lot the bitterness of the product. But between 10 and 20, which is a normal result, it was really, normal result in the sense that for composite flours or composite food matrices, it's normally up to 30, where the public kind of like accept that type of mixtures without saying, oh, there's something else here, So the color was all right. They didn't find much differences between the chips. The texture, there was a little bit of a challenge there. They could maybe that was a bit of an error of me of not regulating properly the oven, because sometimes it got more toasted, and I think that influenced the texture. The flavor, as the graph indicates, it was 20% the best acceptance, and the overall acceptance as well is towards the 20% of protein extract, plant-based protein content. And finally, it was also important to evaluate how much the protein percentage content was present in this application. So a control without any protein addition. The average protein content was 9 up to 10%. However, when it was 45 with up to 25%, it rises to 21%, which is what we're looking for in this type of fortification of products. It's processed with this alkaline solution. All these fibers that are extracted can also be used towards, say, rich fiber content or prebiotic product. Okay, so up to now, we can say that the area of interest, which is Puebla and Tlaxcala, these are two states in the center of Mexico. They have a significant production capacity of Creole fava bean. So at least this area is our center of, it can create a useful supply chain. And as I was saying initially, the biocultural value of Vicia fava, which is part of this traditional agricultural practices, it can also give us access to small-scale farmers. However, small-scale farmers will be ideal to work with, but normally there's also always a challenge to work with them. We try to form like a stable relationship with them, but well, it's also important to recognize that there's also bigger producers that are also using Vicia fava that are in association with corn or in rotation with corn. And this is also important because we are promoting or enhancing, promoting basically a crop that helps with soil conservation. So thanks to this method applied, we had a product that it's accepted, which is more than 75%, with no undesirable compounds that could cause adverse effects on the consumer. And this product also envisions a a new value chain involving bean cultivation, processing, and integration into various food product sectors. The project would have a positive impact on the economic and social development of the region, and it's intended to, in the long term, provide employment opportunities and also, well, environmental and reduce environmental damage. And additionally to this, attending this demand, well, this type of products can as well contribute to the public health and help overcome current consumption limitations that we have in the supply chain. Okay, so thank you. Merci, gracias.